The Kansas Oil Museum in historic downtown El Dorado proudly displays over 140 years of Kansas history, antique vehicles, geology, natural history, or hands-on fun for all ages. Our 10-acre museum in historic Boomtown has something for everyone.
The following program is brought to you by TZ Productions, offering 40 years of media experience.
Brought to you by Central Security Group, your experts in home automation, security, and peace of mind. View video on your smartphone and control your home's lights, locks, heating, cooling, and more. Security app compatible with Apple Watch and Amazon Echo. It's time for Positively Kansas. This week,
I'm never embarrassed to say I'm from Kansas.
but this Marion High School alum says there's always room for improvement. He writes a check to his alma mater in hopes of stimulating discussion about diversity. Hear what he hopes the money will be used for and why he has such a fondness for his hometown. Also, Mayberry is in North Carolina, but did you realize the influence Kansas had on the Andy Griffith show? Anthony Powell investigates the connection and why we can claim a part of this iconic TV show for ourselves. And on any other day, Argonia police would be chasing you down for driving like this. But this was no ordinary day in the small Sumner County town. See what happens when Main Street is turned into a drag strip. I'm Sierra Scott. Those are just some of the stories that are queued up and ready to roll. Positively Kansas starts right now. A Rutgers University professor says there's no place like home. That's why he's hoping to stimulate discussion and understanding in his Kansas hometown. Jeffrey Longhofer's roots run deep in Marion. His grandfather was superintendent of school for 30 years. He says he got a great education there and has a fondness for the community that will never die. However, Longhofer was recently taken aback when he learned of a controversy over a rainbow flag painted in the parking lot of Marion High School. Personalizing parking spots is a tradition for seniors at the school. However, in this case, someone tarred over the LGBT flag a student designed for his spot.
So when I learned about this young man who painted the flag on the parking lot in Marion, I started to reflect on, what was my experience there? So I was saddened to learn that Marion had become an example of intolerance for difference. And that was not my experience living in Marion. So I made a donation along with other family members in the hope that that we can broaden our conversations.
Longhofer and some family members donated $1,500 to the school, which he hopes will turn this controversy into a teachable moment.
I'd like to see the school use it to create conversations using the arts and culture to talk about how much we have in common.
Longhofer says this type of controversy is just as common in the massive metropolitan area where he now lives in New Jersey. He says people in large cities actually tend to live more segregated lives than in small-town Kansas. However, he adds there's also much more LGBT outreach on the East and West Coasts. So Longhofer hopes this donation will be used to create some inspiring theater performances that will give people something to think about and unite behind. For decades, the Andy Griffith Show has been bringing wholesome entertainment to people around America and the rest of the world. But what you might not know is that one cast member was born and raised in Kansas. And as Anthony Powell is about to show us, the show is an important part of his roots as well.
For decades, millions of Andy Griffith Show fans around the world have come to know the character Helen Crump, first as Opie's teacher and later as Andy's girlfriend. In the show, Helen moved to Mayberry from Kansas, the writers no doubt picking the Sunflower State because Anita Corso, who played Helen, was born and raised in Hutchinson. This is her childhood home on West 9th Street.
Her sweet smile.
That's one of many memories Melva Ansel, who grew up with Anita, has of the actress. They first met in 6th grade. Melva was new at school.
She was a very kind person. As a matter of fact, she was very kind to me, is why I took up with her. I was kind of a backward, shy girl, and I was new at Northside, and she just kind of took me in.
The two would remain friends through high school, graduating from Hutch High in 1951. Melva remembers Anita's passion for acting, adding she had the looks and personality suited for performing.
What's this Gomer Powell like? Well, he's tall.
Her features were very fine, I thought. Anita could just fit in anywhere. She could fit in with anyone.
Anita would leave Hutch for Northwestern University and then New York, where she began her career. She first appeared on The Andy Griffith Show, filmed in Los Angeles in 1963. She would star in 66 episodes. Melva remembers the first time she saw her friend on the iconic show.
I knew that she was an actress, but I didn't know that she was going to go that far.
Anita visited Hutchinson a few times after making it in Hollywood, her returns making big headlines in the local paper. After Andy Griffith, she would star in sequels to the show, including Mayberry RFD. She also had roles in General Hospital, Bonanza, Adam 12, Columbo, and many more shows. Sadly, Anita would die at age 62 of cancer in 1995. Something that still saddens her friend Melva, who never saw Anita after high school.
And I wish that I had seen her. I had been able to contact her. I didn't know how. I would have loved to have gotten in touch with her and seen her again.
I think there's very little recognition. I think it's great that you're doing this kind of a story so we can inform people about her.
Perhaps surprisingly, says Reno County Museum curator Lynn Ledibor, not too many people in Hutch know the name Anita Corso. But there are numerous pictures and articles about Corso in the museum for those who want to learn more. There are also possible plans to do an exhibit featuring Anita and other actors from Hutch, including DeLaw Smith, who had a role in the iconic film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
There's also another person we're profiling in this piece, and that happens to be my father, Richard Powell. You see, like Anita Corso, my dad grew up in the Midwest, and like Miss Corso, he would eventually find his way out to Los Angeles, where he would write for TV and film. And one of the programs he worked on, you guessed it, The Andy Griffith Show.
Dad wrote several episodes, including The Chain Letter. Three Wishes for Opie is another of his creations.
You've been granted 3 wishes, Hope.
You mean I can wish for something that'll come true?
I don't remember my dad mentioning if he met Anita Corso, but I do recall him saying what a fun and pleasant experience working on the show was. A few years ago, I received this certificate from the Writers Guild stating that Andy Griffith and other shows Dad wrote for had been voted some of the best ever. So, just as the people of Hutch should be proud that one of their own will always be associated with such an important part of American television history, I too smile every time I watch Andy Griffith, knowing that my dad helped create something that has brought joy to so many people. For Positively Kansas, I'm Anthony Powell.
In addition to stage and television, Anita Corso also acted in films, starring with Steve McQueen in the 1958 cult classic, The Blob. As for Anthony's dad, he wrote for a number of classic shows, and his son Anthony is here to tell us more about that and how Anthony inherited the writing bug. Well, Anthony's dad is not the only great writer in the family. I know it's a different type of writing, but it's really interesting. You got into news. You're obviously a very familiar face here. You've written a children's book. I mean, is there anything you can't do, is my question to you first.
Ask my wife that. I'm sure you get plenty of answers from her. Yeah, I mean, no doubt my dad's writing had a big influence. I mean, as we were talking about, I don't compare anyway writing for television and film with what I did in news. It's
not the
apples and oranges, and same with writing a book. But yeah, no doubt, he had a great influence on what I would end up doing.
Well, I'm going to say there was some genetic talent that flowed down for sure.
Yeah, well, listen, if I could be half the writer that my dad was, coming up with characters like Sergeant Schultz on Hogan's Heroes. Now, I don't have the mind for something like that.
I don't either.
And so he was, he just had an incredible mind. But, maybe I did get some.
Well, I love it. And the thing is, again, you've been on news. You're a very familiar face here. I think it's kind of interesting that you decided to write a children's book. Talk about what motivated you to do that and how you came up with the story for it.
Well, speaking of news, and you can identify with this, I had a lot of ideas during my 19 years in news. But news is such a chaotic business. When it comes to your off days, you want to do one thing, basically sleep.
So that
sleep
is true.
And veg.
That is true.
So all these ideas, I would keep, having them, and writing a book was one of them. Once I got out of news, I started thinking, well, I've got more time. Maybe I can devote some time to, like writing a book and some of the other things I do. So we got this cat, and we got him as a kitten. His name is Hogan for Hogan's Heroes.
I love it.
Yeah. And as he grew older, when people would come over, and numerous people said this cat is so friendly, he's more like a dog.
Wow.
So I started thinking, well, what a good title for a book. And then I was able to meet a great illustrator here in Wichita, Lindsay Stott, and things just came together. With self-publishing, anybody can write a book. Everyone keeps saying, oh, Anthony, congratulations on your book. Like I signed this huge book deal. But self-publishing has been a great thing. I found a great publisher out in San Francisco, Bookstand Publishing. They put it together. So it's been a lot of fun. I've been able to read at schools, been able to do some book signings. And what's really fun is that so many people can identify with this book because they're like, oh my God, I have a cat. He's more like a dog too. So it's been kind of a way to connect with cat lovers, and I'm certainly a cat lover.
I love this. So why a children's book, though? You could have written mysteries or whatever you wanted to write, especially with your news background. Why a children's book?
It just seemed like the right fit for our book because the cat is silly, does silly things, and the word silly you kind of associate it with children, and my children were younger at the time too, and they kind of got involved in it too, gave me some ideas. So it just kind of fit for the children's genre.
What are you hoping when a kid reads this book that he takes away from it, or she?
To laugh. We all need laughter in our lives, right? And I hope that, I've had adults say that when they read the book to their kids, that they've had a good laugh because, again, anybody who has a cat can identify with some of the things with dog-like behavior. And then I also write about how he might exhibit dog-like behavior, but in the end, he also reverts back to plenty of cat behavior too. So he's not all dog, he's got plenty of cat too. So, you're a big reader. It's great to take your mind off our daily problems, issues, whatever, and just kind of go to another place in your mind. And that's what I'm hoping for this, and that's what people have said about it. So it's been very satisfying in that way.
And I think it'd be fun, especially to read to kids and find out what they say to you after you read the book, because I bet they have funny comments or ideas.
Well, the kids have no filter, so that's funny. When I've done that in schools, they've laughed and they've said very funny things. So that is, interacting with kids when reading it has been a great part of this too.
So if we want to get a hold of this book, where can we get it?
It's on Amazon and it's also on bookstandpublishing.com. Again, Bookstand's out in San Francisco. So
excellent. Well, Anthony, it was so fun to see you and talk about all
that you're doing. Fun to be on this side of the camera.
I know, it's different, isn't it?
It is. It is.
A Wichita mother and son are proving that a simple idea can make a huge difference. And they've started a trend that's spreading across Kansas. They're called Paxton's Blessing Boxes, named after 7-year-old Paxton Burns. You've seen boxes like this used to share books in some neighborhoods, but in this case, it's food and other essentials. Paxton's mom, Maggie Ballard, saw something like this when she was on vacation at Table Rock Lake and decided it would be a good thing to do outside their house in their Riverside neighborhood.
It almost seems too simple. Like, bring something, take something, and it's just been incredible. It just is growing and growing and growing, and I don't really see an end in sight, which it is really awesome, but at the same time kind of makes me sad that there's such a need for it.
It says right there on the box, take a blessing when you need one, leave a blessing when you can. And it turns out people really respected that policy. Tony Lane is among those who are very appreciative of this relatively simple gesture.
Because I just live down there on Waco. And sometimes we have rough, I got 2 kids and a wife, and sometimes it's rough. I'm on Social Security, so it really helps me out. I do appreciate it. Like I said, I try to leave a Christmas card and come by as much as I can and drop off stuff too that I ain't gonna use.
Maggie says she named the box after her son so he would develop an empathy toward those in need and a passion for helping others. Every day and night, they make sure the box is stocked with food and personal hygiene products. Neighbors chip in as well. In just a year's time, this one box on West 13th Street has inspired others, and Maggie has helped set them up with their own boxes. There are now a total of 14 Paxton's Blessing boxes in Wichita, Great Bend, La Crosse, Hutchinson, and Bel Air, with one coming to Derby soon. If you're interested in taking part in the movement, you can get more information by clicking on the link on the Positively Kansas page at kpts.org. Now to Wichita's historic Midtown neighborhood, which used to be one of the posh places to live, where all the movers and shakers were. But through the years, the neighborhood declined, and affluent people moved to other areas, and many of the homes became abandoned and neglected. Then in 1972, a group of history-minded Wichitans formed the Historic Midtown Citizens Association. The group's mission was to get people to restore and live in the once grand homes where many of the city's early movers and shakers lived. They started giving annual history tours in the neighborhood, which have evolved into a grand annual affair.
Our annual walking tour for Historic Midtown is our only fundraiser that we do, and the funds that we raise are used to put back into the community to help buildings that are falling down or need repair. We offer these annual walking tours to allow the public to come in and see the glory of these homes and imagine how they used to be, and also to learn how people used to live in those days.
This time around, visitors were invited to tour 4 historic Midtown homes, 3 on North Waco and 1 on North Llewellyn. If you'd like to learn more about Midtown's history and the organization devoted to it, click on the link on the Positively Kansas page at kpts.org. This next story is about a young Kansan who's making his mark both on the ground and from the air. He's Jace Rieger from Heston. This 13-year-old has started his own aerial photography business. Check it out. Here he is shooting video of his hometown from high above. Jace says he's always been interested in aviation and got into drone flying a few years ago with a small, inexpensive drone.
At first, it's very difficult. It comes with a built-in simulator, so you can kind of get the ropes of it, and then it's easy from there.
When his skill improved, well, Jace upgraded. Now he's reaching new heights and taking spectacular shots with this high-end aircraft. And Jace and his drone are now available for hire.
My dad had a crazy idea about taking aerial shots of properties out in the country and take it to him and try to sell it to him, and kind of just built in a photography business.
Jace has found that sometimes it's hard to get taken seriously when you're in the 8th grade. But on the other hand, a lot of people are impressed with his hoot spot.
I think there's pretty good potential because I'm 13 and it's kind of unique that I'm in an aerial photography business.
Jace also has a passion for ground photography. Check out these pics. His favorite subjects are Kansas landscapes and weather. If you'd like to see more of Jason's work or learn about his business, you can find a link to his website on Positively Kansas page at kpts.org. Downtown Argonia became a drag race strip on a recent Saturday afternoon. Hot rods raced down Main Street in the town as onlookers watched from the sidewalks. The cars raced down a 150-foot track in the middle of town. For around 3 hours, cars raced down the street, some accelerating to speeds of 80 to 85 miles an hour. Race organizer Dennis Dickerson says he hopes the race becomes an annual event in Argonia that will boost community pride and spirit.
Other small towns have had it's a huge calling card to bring people into your small town. So we thought we'd get on the bandwagon and see what we couldn't do to bring more people into Argonia, just show them what we have to offer.
Prior to the race, crowds got to check out the wheels in a car show. A lot of classic restored cars were featured. Car enthusiasts from Wichita to Oklahoma entered the Argonia car show and race. Organizers were thrilled by the turnout and are already making plans to do it again next year. It may be the best way to bond with your family, sitting around the kitchen table playing games with the kids. One family in Hutchinson has taken the tradition up a few notches. They designed their very own professional card game based on the magic of childhood, and they're hoping a Kickstarter campaign brings their game to card tables around the country. Justin Kramer has the story from Hutch.
Michael Rogers shuffles the deck and deals a game of cards to his boys around the kitchen table at their home in Hutch. They've found it's a great way to bond as a family.
As they use your intellect, you have to think, you have to talk to people, you have to interact, and I love that. And so we started just as a family sitting around the table and playing games.
The Rogers have taken family games, though, to another level. This game they're playing here, the family came up with it on their own, with all the boys helping design a deck of over 60 cards, along with the rules of the game.
We thought, wouldn't it be cool if we made our own game? And so, Mike would sit down with the boys and they'd use old business cards and they would start strategizing and making up, and then they'd play it and they'd work on it.
So on that one, he has to flip over the top card and see what color it is.
It's called Ninja Monkeys, a play on a family nickname for their sometimes rambunctious three boys.
Each card actually encapsulates something from childhood, like the dog ate my homework, a classic one. We'll take cards away, they're shredded now. There's things like pillow forts, that's a protection card, so that will protect your yard.
The first one to score 5 points wins, as players take turns either scoring points or taking them away from an opponent.
What you doing?
It's supposed to be a middle-of-the-road game. It's something where the older people and the younger people can meet. It's easy enough for the younger kids to understand it.
Whoever pays it down doesn't have. Everybody that isn't the one that pays it down has to call all cards except for one. And the person that pays it down doesn't have to do anything. They just wait until it's the next story. That's if they have one more story.
After getting the idea to design the game, the family worked with a professional artist to help draw up the cards. They've now been playing with a prototype.
It's totally different to see them in print, to actually handle them and play with them. And we've actually played games with this prototype. And it is cool to see the steps as we go through.
Now they're marketing the game on the website Kickstarter, hoping there's enough interest to print up hundreds more for families around the nation to play.
So many games, they say they're family friendly, and then they put some innuendo and stuff in, and they try to slip stuff past. We didn't do any of that. It's a good, clean game. It's not going to embarrass you in front of another family.
So far, Ninja Monkeys has been a hit with friends and family of the Rogers.
As a family, we've bonded a lot over it. We've played it with friends that have come over and played it with their kids. My friend who has kids from like 15 to 7 play it, and they loved it. They all ganged up on their mom, and they were just going, really enjoying to get into it.
The family is trying to raise $16,000 in pledges to put the game in production, with hopes to turn creating games into a family business. They've been learning quite a few lessons along the way, most importantly, that it's worth chasing a dream.
Kids need to see that, they can dream big dreams, and they can actually achieve those dreams. And this was a dream. We had a dream as a family, and it's coming true.
Regardless of what happens, the game's already helped one Kansas family bond for hours at their kitchen table. And that's a win for everyone who's played. For Positively Kansas, I'm Justin Kramer.
You can find the Kickstarter campaign by searching Ninja Monkeys on Kickstarter, or follow the family's efforts on their Facebook page. I am one who loves to read books, and my favorite books to read are actually on topics that I know very little about, and especially books that are on topics that there really aren't a lot of books on this topic, and that's where Brad Roth comes in. He has written a book called God's Country, which I think is fascinating. The topic is just something, again, that I haven't seen a lot of. Talk about what God's Country is about.
God's Country is about how does the rural church play a special role in helping bring forth the gifts that God has given rural places. There's a lot that's written that is really addressing a more suburban or urban context. And this book really tries to get at what is the authentic vision of rural life, and then how do we begin to, as a congregation, as churches, live in a way that helps rural communities thrive.
You know, I was going to touch on that because there are a lot of articles that are talking about the rural communities are kind of dying, and there's an older population there. What are some of the things that the church provides aside from the Christian foundation?
This may go all the way back. Rural's got this double ring. I mean, on the one hand, you have this narrative of decline, and rural's kind of falling apart like a rusty pickup truck. But rural also can have this ring of kind of pristine, agrarian, you know, the salt of the earth values. And I think one of the things that the church has to do is really have a vision for the whole community. Having a vision that the destiny of a rural community and the destiny of the rural church are going to be tied together. So wherever the community is going, the church is going to be going with it.
So are you hoping your book will be a roadmap as such for these communities to maybe strengthen the church, or what are you hoping will be the outcome?
What I hope is that it helps rural leaders and rural pastors and folks who just love the rural church to have new eyes and to come with a fresh sense of what's possible and what God's doing in rural places.
So what do you see as the difference? Because you've been in Peru, you've been in Washington State, you've been here.
Yeah.
What do you see as kind of the foundation or what we need from churches in rural communities especially?
We see ourselves tied to the good and the future of the rural community as a whole. And there's this great passage in the New Testament that says, let us work for the good of all and especially for the family of faith. But it starts with the good of all, right? Right. And so we have to have that vision for the common good. And I picked up some beautiful stories, and you know, one of them where I think about like befriending rural communities, that's kind of a key image for me. And one of them I heard about a pastor in a very small community. They used to have a movie theater, and the movie theater couldn't make it. I mean, it's a town of 800 people, right? So the economics just don't add up. But what they did was turn that movie theater into a nonprofit. And so the pastor's not the one who's running the whole show, but he's part of that. And I just love this image of the pastor taking tickets and making the popcorn and that sort of thing. It's not directly ministry, but if you have that vision for the good of the whole community, then that's right up your alley, right? And it makes perfect sense to be doing that sort of thing. So it's befriending the community, caring about the whole of the community.
That is a unique program. I love that. What a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful.
It really is. So if we want to get a hold of your book, how do we do that?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. They also have copies at Faith and Life in Newton.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And I love this subject, and I think it's great that you picked it up because, again, I've not seen any books on this before. So.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the chance to be here.
Absolutely. That's a wrap for this week. If you have a story idea, please send us an email at positivelykansas@kpts.org. I'm Sierra Scott. We'll see you next time. Brought to you by Central Security Group, your experts in home automation, security, and peace of mind. View video on your smartphone and control your home's lights, locks, heating, cooling, and more. Security app compatible with Apple Watch and Amazon Echo.
The preceding program was brought to you by TZ Productions, offering 40 years of media experience.